Two twins, born perfectly normal and abandoned by their parents in front of Blackwood Manor, set the stage for a dark legacy. 19 years later, many events come to us that will surprise us. So what awaits these two poor girls? Listen to the whole story with me to discover this fascinating journey. Before we start this journey, please share where you are watching in the comments. Blackwood Manor stands tall in the cold New York night, its tall windows glowing under a pale moon. Inside, the air is filled with the scent of luxury fresh orchids, high-end perfumes, and old wines. However, in one of the mansion's grandest halls, a different smell dominates. The sterile scent of hospital-grade disinfectant mixed with the sweat of childbirth. Helena Blackwood, a woman of striking beauty and relentless vanity, lay exhausted on silk sheets, her golden curls damp with perspiration. Nearby, Victor Blackwood, a tall man with a chiseled jaw and an expression as cold as ice, stood with his arms crossed. His tailored suit remained crisp, as if untouched by the night as chaos. The doctor, wiping his brow, announced while cradling two newborn girls, "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood, you have twin daughters." But instead of joy, silence filled the room. Helena lifted her head slightly, her heart pounding. Victor stepped forward, his eyes, scanning the infants, twisted into something unreadable. The doctor hesitated before lowering the swaddled babies into Helena's trembling arms. Eager to see the perfect children, she had envisioned miniature versions of herself and Victor, blessed with striking beauty and refined features. Helena pulled back the blankets. Yet her breath caught as she beheld their uneven features. One baby bore a birthmark stretching from her left eye to her cheek, while the other had unusually large, intense eyes that seemed disproportionate to her tiny face. Their skin was subtly wrinkled, giving them an odd appearance. Helena's chest tightened. This could not be real. Her daughters were meant to be perfect, beautiful heirs to their fortune. When she turned to Victor, his face was already contorted with disgust. "They are hideous," he said in a low, sharp tone that cut through the heavy air. Helena swallowed hard as nausea overwhelmed her. The doctor cleared his throat, uncomfortable with the situation. "Newborns often change in appearance as they grow," he offered. But Victor interrupted with a glare. "Take them away." Helena's lips trembled. Looking down at the girls in her arms, their tiny fingers instinctively curling for warmth, she felt a deep, unfamiliar surge of emotion, fear, confusion, perhaps even guilt. Then Victor's voice rang out again, colder still. "If the press finds out about this," his meaning was clear. Helena turned away, biting her lip. She had built her life on perfection, wealth, reputation, and a place among New York's elite. When she reopened her eyes, her heart had grown hard. "We can't keep them," she whispered. 2 months later, in the dead of winter, the Blackwoods prepared for their final act of cruelty. A sleek black car rolled through empty streets, its headlights slicing through the mist. Inside, Helena sat stiffly wrapped in a fur coat, cradling the sleeping infants, while Victor gripped the steering wheel with cold determination. They stopped before a towering mansion at the city's edge, a property belonging to the reclusive Beatrice Sterling, whose wealth was the subject of hushed conversations at high society events. Victor checked his watch. It was just past 3 a.m., and Helena took a deep breath before opening the car door. Stepping onto the icy pavement, her heels clicking on the stone, she hesitated as one of the infants stirred in its blanket. A single tear rolled down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away, bent down, and placed the babies gently at the estate's foot. Without another glance, she hurried back to the car, and Victor drove off in silence. At sunrise, Beatrice Sterling stood at her grand doorway, sipping her morning tea as the sharp winter air nipped at her skin. Then, a faint, muffled sound, a cry, caught her attention. Her heart clenched. Though not easily shaken, something about the fragile whimpers stirred a deep empathy within her. With measured steps, her silk robe brushing the stone stairs, she looked down to find two tiny bundles abandoned on the cold ground. Her breath hitched, and she knelt slowly, peeling back the blankets. Two pairs of desperate eyes met hers. Her fingers trembled as she touched their cold skin. Who would do such a thing? She murmured, memories of a long-buried past flickering through her mind. After a long exhale, with quiet resolve, she scooped the babies into her arms. "Come, little ones," she murmured, "you are safe now." And with that, Beatrice Sterling closed the doors to her mansion, unaware that she had just opened the door to a future that would shake the world. The Sterling mansion, though just as grand as Blackwood Manor, carried an air of mystery, a place where secrets hid behind velvet curtains and chandeliers sparkled with untold stories. For Ivy and Arya, the twins, it became the only home they would ever know. Beatrice Sterling was a woman of quiet strength who had never had children of her own, nor sought companionship. The world whispered about her lost love and the wealth she guarded like a fortress. Yet when she found the abandoned twins at her doorstep, something long thought dead stirred within her. Without asking questions or searching for their parents, she claimed them as her own. Years passed, and the twins grew under Beatrice's watchful eye. Childhood, however, was not kind to them. Ivy, the elder by mere minutes, was the stronger of the two, her sharp, inquisitive eyes always seeking answers and challenging the world. Arya, on the other hand, was softer, her voice a quiet whisper behind Ivy's bold declarations. Their hands often reached out to comfort each other when the world proved too cruel. Even within the mansion's walls, the hushed voices of the staff maids, gardeners, and butlers whispered cruel remarks. "Poor Miss Sterling deserves real children, not these," they said. "They say the rich go mad in loneliness, perhaps that is why she keeps them." Each cruel word tightened Beatrice's thin lips, but she had no patience for the weak-minded, and even less for cruelty. One afternoon, while Ivy and Arya played in the rose garden, carefully plucking petals and collecting them in a tin bucket, their laughter was a rare oasis amid the desert of loneliness. Then, a group of neighborhood children appeared at the gates, peering in through the iron bars. "There they are," sneered one boy. "The ugly twins," jeered another girl, giggling as she added, "My mom says they were thrown away like trash." Ivy's grip on the tin bucket tightened, while Arya shrank behind her. "Go away," Ivy said steadily. One boy tossed a small rock near Ivy's feet. "What? Are you going to scare us with your monster faces?" The children laughed, their voices sharp like broken glass. Arya whimpered, but Ivy did not flinch. Instead, she stepped forward, fists clenched. "Come closer and say that again," she challenged. For a moment, the children hesitated before a new voice cut through the tension like thunder. Beatrice Sterling appeared on the steps, her silhouette framed by the fading sun. Though she raised no harsh words, her quiet command sent the children scrambling away, their bravado melting under her cold stare. Turning to the twins, Beatrice knelt before them. "You must never bow to the words of weak people," she said softly, brushing a stray lock of hair from Arya's face. "They fear what they do not understand. You are not monsters, you are warriors." Ivy's small hand still trembled even as she fought to hide her fear. "They called us monsters," she murmured. Beatrice gently cupped Ivy's chin, forcing her to meet her eyes. "You are not monsters, you are warriors," she repeated. "Come, I will teach you how to make the world kneel before you." Beatrice Sterling was not a mother in the traditional sense. She did not cradle them when they cried or sing lullabies at night. Instead, she armed them with knowledge. The grand library of the mansion became their sanctuary. By the time they were 10, Ivy and Arya were reading books meant for university students' studies in business, chemistry, history. Beatrice taught them the art of negotiation, the strength in silence, and the power of perception. When people see weakness, they exploit it, she told them. You must never show anything but strength. Arya absorbed the lessons with quiet fascination, but it was Ivy who devoured them, her mind sharp and her hunger for knowledge insatiable. Yet no matter how much they learned, the world still saw them as nothing more than two abandoned girls with unfortunate faces. On their 12th birthday, the twins made a request. We want to go into the city, declared Ivy, her voice clear. Beatrice studied them carefully. Why? Arya hesitated, but Ivy lifted her chin. We want to see if the world has changed. Beatrice sighed. She understood what they sought, a test of their newfound strength. Against her better judgment, she took them to a grand shopping district, an elite world where beauty and wealth were worshipped like deities. They strolled through marble-floored boutiques, their modest yet expensive dresses setting them apart from the average shopper. Still, despite the price of their clothing, the stares persisted. Women whispered behind gloved hands, and men averted their eyes. At one boutique, a well-dressed woman turned to her companion, speaking softly, "They must be adopted." That woman would never have birthed children so unfortunate. Arya shrank further, while Ivy clenched her fists. "Leave us alone," Ivy said coolly. One of the boys nearby tossed a rock, and just then, a tall boy with dark hair and an easy smirk stepped forward. "Who are you?" Ivy asked. "I'm Oliver Calloway," he replied with a grin. "I think I just found the most interesting people in this school." Unlike the others, Oliver did not flinch at their looks or lower his voice. Most importantly, he never pitted them. "I like power," he admitted one afternoon while leaning against a locker. "And you, too, you just don't know how to use it yet." Ivy narrowed her eyes. "And you want to teach us?" Oliver chuckled. "Not exactly. I want to watch you learn." Arya, hesitant yet intrigued, whispered, "Do you trust him?" Ivy smirked. "That doesn't mean we can't use him." And so, an unlikely alliance formed. With Oliver by their side, Ivy and Arya navigated Hamilton Academy as ruthless hierarchy, learning who to befriend, who to ignore, and, most importantly, who to destroy. By the end of the semester, whispers about their exploits had grown. "Did you hear what Ivy did in debate club?" And Arya's chemistry project was so advanced the teacher couldn't even understand it. They were no longer invisible, yet despite their brilliance and power, the world continued to scorn their looks. One evening, as winter crept in, Arya sat alone in the library, flipping through an old magazine featuring a model with flawless skin, symmetrical features, and an effortless smile. Arya touched her own face and whispered, "I wish I were beautiful." A heavy silence followed. Ivy, who had just entered the room, froze. She hated that wish. Rushing over, Ivy snatched the magazine away. "Don't say that," she said sharply. "Beauty is overrated. We have intelligence, we have power." Arya sighed. "But would it be so wrong to have both?" Ivy's fists clenched. She had spent her whole life convincing herself that beauty was nothing, though deep inside, she feared the truth the world would always favor the beautiful, and no matter how powerful they became, some doors would remain closed. That night, as a storm raged outside Sterling Mansion, the twins sat by a roaring fireplace, their minds haunted by the day's events. "They hate us because they can't accept us," Arya whispered. Ivy stared into the flames. "Because they see what we are," she replied. Arya looked to her sister. "Then how do we make them stop?" Ivy met Arya's eyes. "We make them need us. We find something they care about more than beauty. Outside, the firelight cast shifting shadows on the walls, and Beatrice Sterling watched from a doorway. For the first time, she truly believed the girls would not only survive, but conquer the world. Soon, Beatrice made an unexpected announcement. "I have enrolled you in Hamilton Academy." Aria's fork clattered on her plate. "School?" she repeated as if the word were foreign. Beatrice met their eyes evenly. "You have hidden away long enough. You are brilliant beyond your years, but brilliance locked away is useless. It is time you faced the world on your own terms." A heavy silence filled the room. Aria hesitated, but what if they are cruel? Beatrice's expression remained unreadable. "Then you will learn how strong you truly are." Ivy exhaled sharply. "Fine." The twins' first day at Hamilton Academy was everything they had expected and worse. The elite private school was filled with the offspring of New York's wealthiest families. Their blonde hair shone under sparkling chandeliers, their uniforms immaculately pressed, their laughter echoing like a chorus of exclusivity. Then came Ivy and Aria. The moment they stepped in, whispers erupted. Are they really related to the Sterlings? They can't be. Look at their faces. Some students turned away, pretending not to stare. Others smirked with razor-sharp disdain. At lunchtime, as the twins carried their trays through the cafeteria, every glance was filled with scorn. Suddenly, a girl with golden curls sneered from across the room. "Looks like they let in the charity cases this year." A round of laughter burst forth. Ivy did not even blink. She strode over to the girl's table, set her tray down, and leaned in. "If you're so concerned about charity cases, perhaps you should examine your father's failing stock portfolio," she said calmly. The table fell silent as the girl's face flushed red. Before any further retort, a tall, dark-haired boy with an easy smirk intervened. "Who are you?" Ivy asked. "I'm Oliver Calloway," he repeated, grinning. "And I think I just found the most interesting people in this school." His words were simple, yet they held a promise of power. In the weeks that followed, Ivy and Aria, once dismissed as mere misfits, began to rise. Their achievements in debate, chemistry, and business strategy became the talk of Hamilton Academy. Yet, no matter how much they excelled, the world continued to label them as nothing more than two abandoned girls with unfortunate faces. On their 12th birthday, they boldly declared, "We want to see the city." Despite their trepidation, Beatrice agreed, taking them into an elite shopping district. There, behind marble floors and glittering boutique displays, spiteful whispers followed. "They must be adopted," a well-dressed woman murmured, "for no mother would have birthed such misfits." Ivy and Aria exchanged determined glances. As they walked on, Beatrice's voice echoed in their minds. "People want to give you a seat at the table, you must take it." That very night, in a storm-battered mansion, Ivy and Aria sat by the fireplace, discussing the day's humiliation. "We are not defined by their looks," Ivy declared. "We are defined by what we can create." Aria, though trembling, nodded. "We need to change the rules," Ivy said, her eyes hardening with resolve. "Beauty may have been our curse, but power, real power, is ours to claim." And so, with Beatrice's guidance, the twins began to arm themselves with knowledge, determination, and a plan to reshape an industry that had always favored the beautiful. Their breakthrough came unexpectedly when, on their 17th birthday, Ivy announced, "We need a laboratory." Aria blinked in disbelief. "A lab? We don't have one." Ivy's lips curled into a determined smile. "Then we'll build one." In an unused room of Sterling Mansion, once a wine cellar, the space was transformed into a makeshift laboratory filled with glass beakers, chemical compounds, and pages of handwritten formulas. It was the first step toward building their own empire. But early experiments were fraught with failure. One evening, after weeks of research, Arya created a serum intended to improve skin texture permanently. Excited, Ivy insisted on testing it first. The moment the liquid touched her skin, she felt an agonizing burn, and red welts spread across her cheek. "I don't understand, the formula was perfect," Ivy hissed through gritted teeth. Arya, panicked, tried to soothe her. "We'll fix this, Ivy. We fail fast until we learn." The next day, they began again, and after months of adjustments, Arya finally developed a moisturizing serum that restructured skin on a cellular level. Ivy was the first to test it once more, and this time there was only a slow cooling sensation and a subtle glow, a beginning, not perfection, but a promise of what was to come. Beatrice examined Ivy's transformed skin under the dim laboratory light. "This is it," she murmured. "This is where it starts." For the first time in their lives, Ivy and Arya had created something the world would want. Yet Ivy knew that the world would not simply accept their work, they had to force it into the market. Using Beatrice's old business connections, she arranged a private showcase at an elite industry event filled with investors, influencers, and beauty moguls who controlled the market. The problem was, they had no company, no reputation, only the bitter legacy of the Blackwood name. Arya hesitated. "Do you really think they'll listen to us?" Ivy's smirk was razor sharp. "They don't have to listen, they just have to see." And so, with that, they took their first step into war. The showcase was held in the grand ballroom of the Aurora Hotel, where crystal chandeliers reflected off polished marble floors. There, among the city's most influential figures, Ivy and Arya stood at the entrance. They did not belong yet, not after tonight. Beatrice's words echoed in Ivy's mind. "People want to give you a seat, you must take it." The event was a private investor showcase, intended for established beauty brands to present new innovations. Using Beatrice's help, Ivy forged an invitation under the name Sterling Labs, a company that, in truth, did not yet exist. Arya fidgeted with a small glass vial in her hand, containing their first real product, a serum unlike anything the market had seen. "We shouldn't be here," Arya whispered. "They'll discover who we are." Ivy's sharp glance silenced her. "They want tea, and even if they do, it won't matter." Among the gathered elites was Veronica Kingsley, the undisputed queen of luxury cosmetics. Ivy's gaze locked on her. "There's our target," Ivy said softly. Arya's eyes widened. "Are you insane? She doesn't even know us." Ivy smiled confidently. "She will." Without hesitation, Ivy stepped forward and interrupted Veronica's conversation with two investors. "Miss Kingsley, I believe we have something you will want to see." Veronica's brows lifted as she assessed the bold pair. "You believe?" she replied smoothly. The investors nearby exchanged amused glances, but Ivy pressed on. "In about 5 minutes you will." Veronica's curiosity was piqued. "Prove it," she said, uncapping the vial and applying a small drop to the back of her hand. In moments, the fine lines vanished, and her skin took on a soft radiance as if treated with an expensive procedure. The investors fell silent, and Veronica's voice softened to a near whisper. "What is this?" Ivy smiled confidently. "This is not just another serum, it is a revolution." Veronica arched a brow. "I'd never heard of Sterling Labs." One investor scoffed. "Every young entrepreneur thinks they have reinvented the wheel. What makes you any different?" Ivy met his gaze steadily. "Because in 10 years, you will be begging to invest in us." A hush fell over the group, even Veronica looked slightly amused. "Prove it," she repeated. Just then, a cold voice cut through the moment. "Well, this is unexpected. Every muscle in Ivy's body stiffened. Slowly, she turned to see a figure standing a few feet away, a champagne flute in hand. Helena Blackwood, looking as pristine as ever, her blonde waves immaculate and her emerald dress hugging her figure like a magazine cover, smiled but not warmly. My, she said slowly, taking a measured sip. I never imagined I'd see you here. But then again, I suppose I should have expected it. The room fell silent. Arya's breath quickened, and her hands trembled, but Ivy remained unfazed. Surprised to see you, Mother? Ivy said coolly. I didn't think this was your scene, she added. After all, we are among self-made women now. A flicker of irritation passed over Helena's face. Oh, darling, she sighed, setting down her glass. You're not self-made, you're merely playing dress-up in a world you do not belong to. Her words stung, for no matter how powerful Ivy had become, the cruel, beautiful woman who was their mother still saw them as nothing. Veronica Kingsley, ever the businesswoman, interjected with a measured tone, These are your daughters? Her voice was curious yet composed. Helena's smile widened. Yes, she replied, though Ivy's nails dug into her palm. No more, Helena added softly, lowering her voice. Let me make this simple. Whatever little game you're playing, it won't last. You think you've found a way into this world, but you are not one of us. Ivy's heart pounded. For the first time in years, she felt small. But then she looked at Arya, who stared at their mother, as if seeing a ghost, and Ivy straightened her voice. We are not trying to be you, Mother. We are going to be something bigger. Helena's smile faltered for a fleeting second, and in that moment, Ivy knew she had won this round. Yet the war was far from over, for now Helena and Victor Blackwood knew they existed, and that was more dangerous than anything else. The ride back to Sterling Mansion was silent. City lights blurred past the tinted windows, a kaleidoscope of neon and shadow. Arya sat rigidly, her fingers digging into her dress fabric, while Ivy stared out the window, lost in swirling thoughts. They have found us, Ivy murmured. And now Mother has made it clear she won't ignore us. Beatrice, seated across from them, finally broke the silence. I won't let this go. Ivy turned to her. I know, she said, noticing the soft drumming of Beatrice's fingers on her knee. For years, you pretended we didn't exist, and in one night, you forced her to acknowledge us in front of the most powerful people in the industry. Arya's eyes widened. They looked at us as if we were nothing, she whispered. Ivy clenched her fists. Then we will make sure she never dares to look at us like that again. Beatrice's lips curled into something between amusement and approval. You must prepare, she warned, because I guarantee Helena Blackwood is already planning your downfall. Later that evening, Helena sat in her penthouse swirling the last sip of champagne in a crystal glass. Victor, reading the financial news, remained unbothered by the evening's events. She is dangerous, Helena said quietly. Victor replied, Who is your daughter? Helena spat, Amelia, no. She is not a child anymore, she is a threat. Victor smirked, They're just girls playing at business. Let them tire themselves out. Helena's fingers tightened around her glass. No, she said in a low voice. You don't understand, they're not only trying to build a company. They are trying to rewrite the rules of this industry. Victor sighed. We have Kingsley Beauty, Dawson Cosmetics companies that have been untouchable for decades. No one will invest in some no-name laboratory. Helena's grip loosened, and a slow, dangerous smile curled on her lips. Then let us make sure of that. Victor raised an eyebrow. And how do you propose we do that? Helena leaned back, eyes gleaming darkly. We destroy them before they even start. 3 days later, Sterling Mansion received an unexpected visitor. Ivy sat in the study reviewing financial projections for their newly formed company, while Arya pored over research on her leather-bound notebook. Suddenly, the front door slammed open. Beatrice appeared, her usual composure cracked by a near rage. "Come downstairs," she commanded in an icy voice. In the foyer, a woman in an expensive navy suit stood. Helena S. lawyer. Without pleasantries, she extended a thick envelope. "This is a cease and desist order," she said coolly. "Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood have trademarked the name Sterling under their corporate holdings. You cannot operate under it." Arya's breath hitched. "So they're trying to erase us again," Ivy mused with a humorless laugh. The lawyer's lips pressed into a thin line. "Miss Sterling, take this seriously." Then, Beatrice stepped forward, her voice cold and precise. "Tell Helena that she underestimates you. You can take the name, but you cannot take what you built. And when you rise, she will regret this move." After a split-second hesitation, the lawyer turned on her heel. "You have 1 week to comply," she stated, then left. In that moment, Arya collapsed into a chair, hands trembling. "They took our name," she whispered. Ivy crossed her arms. "No, they took a word, not our identity." Beatrice watched them carefully. "This is only the beginning. Helena will not stop here, I know that." Ivy's eyes glinted with determination. "Then we will make sure she never dares to look at us like that again." Beatrice's slow, dangerous smirk confirmed it. They were finally being noticed. For the first time in months, Sterling Mansion was quiet. No attacks, no scandals, no sabotage. And that silence frightened Arya the most. Sitting at the kitchen table stirring her tea absent-mindedly, she asked, "Why do I feel like we should be celebrating, yet we're not?" Ivy, scrolling through reports on her phone, replied, "We're not stupid." Arya set her cup down. "Then what do we do now?" Ivy exhaled slowly and said, "We expand. We won't just survive, we will grow. Next time, we won't just fight back, we will ensure he never gets back up." 3 days later, Ivy and Arya sat across from Veronica Kingsley in her lavish penthouse. The older woman sipped her espresso with icy blue eyes. "So, you survived your father's little game," Veronica said. Ivy smirked. "Did you bet against us?" Veronica chuckled. "I never bet against people who have nothing to lose." Arya interjected, "We need to talk expansion." Veronica raised an eyebrow. "Ambitious, aren't you?" Ivy folded her arms. "We need stronger distribution, bigger markets. We're good, but not untouchable yet." Veronica studied them before leaning forward. "Fine," she said, "but I have one condition." Ivy lifted her chin. "Name it." Veronica smiled sharply. "I want 20% of vivid glow." Arya's breath caught. "That's too much." Ivy's jaw tensed. Veronica shrugged. "You need power, I have it. If I'm risking my reputation to help grow your empire, I expect my share." A heavy silence followed as Arya gently urged, "It might be what we need." Ivy clenched her fists and countered, 10%. Veronica smirked, 15%? Ivy's lips pressed together. 12% final offer. Veronica studied her, then slowly nodded. "Deal?" And just like that, vivid glow became unstoppable. Yet, as Ivy shook Veronica's hand, she couldn't shake the thought that they had made another deal with the devil, one where power always came at a price. In the days that followed, Veronica's influence became undeniable. Vivid Glow's suppliers returned, orders skyrocketed, and investors began circling. For the first time, Ivy and Arya felt unstoppable. But then, a scandal broke. Reports emerged of dangerous ingredients in their skincare line, accusations of fraud, and customer complaints of rashes and skin reactions. Within hours, Social media exploded. They aren't even trained chemists. What did you expect? This is what happens when plain girls try to sell beauty, sneered critics. Ivy and Arya stared at the news reports in horror. Arya's voice trembled. This isn't real, our formulas are flawless. Beatrice's expression remained unreadable. It doesn't matter if it's real, it only matters that people believe it. Ivy's mind raced. This is Helena's doing. Beatrice nodded. Of course it is. Arya covered her face with her hands. How do we fight this? Ivy exhaled slowly, knowing that Helena had assumed that throwing dirt on them would break their spirit. Scars only make us stronger, Ivy declared. We want to fight it. Instead, we'll use it. Taking out her phone, Ivy typed furiously. Let us give them a scandal, she murmured. Moments later, her tweet went viral. Amelia Blackwood, they tried to ruin us. They failed. Vivid Glow's truth will out. Soon, customers began posting reviews, proving the allegations were false. Industry insiders whispered, have Helena and Victor Blackwood gone too far? Vivid Glow not only survived the scandal, it grew stronger. Social media rallied behind them, as the public turned against Helena Blackwood. And just like that, the tide shifted. Yet, Helena knew better than to celebrate. Wounded but not defeated, she remained determined that a wounded animal was the most dangerous of all. Across town, in her lavish penthouse, Helena Blackwood scrolled through breaking news headlines. The Blackwood dynasty is in trouble. Her phone buzzed, but she ignored it. Victor, still unruffled, remarked, you have lost. Helena snapped her gaze at him. Not yet, she murmured. If I cannot destroy them directly, I know someone who can. Victor sighed. Maybe it's time to just give up. Helena's voice grew dark. They have Veronica now, and that changes everything. Victor shrugged. Then we must change them back. Helena's fingers tightened into fists. We will show them real destruction. For the first time in 20 years, fear crept into her heart. 2 weeks later, Vivid Glow arrived with Veronica's backing. Suppliers returned, investors apologized, and the chaos Helena had unleashed seemed erased. Yet Ivy knew this was no victory, it was a warning. Victor had agreed to back off for now, but when he returned, he would ensure they never walked away unscathed. At Sterling Mansion, the silence was eerie. Arya sat in the kitchen, stirring her tea absent-mindedly, while Ivy scrolled through reports on her phone. Finally, Arya whispered, Why do I feel like we should be celebrating? Ivy replied, Because we're not stupid. Arya set her cup down. So what do we do now? Ivy exhaled. We expand? We make it impossible for him to take us down. Arya frowned. But what if he attacks again? Ivy's grip tightened. Next time, we want to just fight back, we ensure he never gets back up. 2 days later, Ivy and Arya met Veronica Kingsley again, this time in her grand penthouse at Kingsley Tower. Veronica's icy blue eyes appraised them as she said, I was wondering when you'd come. I assume you realize how small you still are. Ivy replied coolly, We're not here to beg. We're here to make a deal. Veronica arched an eyebrow. And why would I help you? Ivy smiled. Because if we fall, Helena wins, and we both know you despise losing to her. Veronica's smirk faded momentarily before she leaned back slowly. Interesting, she murmured. Arya held her breath. I will help you, but everything comes at a price, Veronica warned. I expect something in return. Ivy's eyes narrowed. We wouldn't be here if we weren't willing to pay. Veronica continued, When the time is right, you will do something for me. Arya shifted uncomfortably. What kind of something? Veronica shrugged. I haven't decided yet. After a pause, Ivy extended her hand. "Deal," she said. Veronica's grip was firm as she shook it. "Congratulations, ladies," she said. "You have just declared war." That night, Helena Blackwood was not accustomed to losing. When she learned that Veronica Kingsley had sided with the daughters, she shattered a crystal wine glass against a wall in fury. Victor barely lifted his gaze from his laptop. "Are you going to throw a tantrum every time they outmaneuver you?" he chided. Helena's eyes blazed. "They are children." Victor sighed. "Perhaps it is time to give up." Helena snapped. "Don't you dare suggest we back off." Victor shrugged. "They have Veronica now, that changes everything." Helena's voice dropped. "Then we must change them back." She stormed toward the bar, pouring another drink with trembling hands. For the first time in 20 years, Helena felt fear. "Fine," she murmured. "If they want to fight dirty, I will show them what real destruction looks like." 3 weeks later, with Veronica's backing, Vivid Glow's orders surged, investors circled, and the brand became unstoppable. Yet a scandal erupted. A press release appeared under their name. New hires were made by Veronica without consulting Ivy and Aria, and a product launch was rushed despite Aria's protests. Ivy's jaw tightened. It was clear, Veronica wasn't just helping them grow, she was taking control. Ivy stormed into Kingsley Tower, with Aria trailing behind, and confronted Veronica in her office. "You are making decisions without us," Ivy accused. Veronica's response was measured. "I am making decisions for you, that is what partners do." Aria interjected, "No, that is what owners do." Veronica smiled slowly. "And what exactly did you think I was when you gave me 12%? Ivy's fingers curled into fists. "We did not sign over our company." Veronica leaned back and replied coolly, "No, but you signed over influence. And influence, darling, is far more powerful than ownership." Ivy's breath came slowly. Veronica tapped her nails on the desk. "Tell me, Ivy, what is it you are so afraid of?" Ivy's voice turned icy. "Losing control." Veronica chuckled. "Control is an illusion. You don't control power, you wield it." Leaning forward, she added, "If you're smart, you will stop fighting me and start learning from me." Aria frowned. "What does that mean?" Veronica's smile deepened. "I have a proposal that will make you more powerful than you ever imagined." Ivy's eyes narrowed. "And what is the price?" Veronica's gaze darkened. "I want Vivid Glow." Aria's stomach dropped. "No," Ivy said sharply. "What do you want?" Veronica's voice was smooth as silk. "I want 51%. Aria inhaled sharply. "That means control." Veronica tilted her head. "Call it an insurance policy. I help you take down Helena, and in return, I take Vivid Glow to heights you can't imagine. You'll still have power, money, and your name, but I will own you." Aria stood abruptly. "We're done here." Ivy did not move. Aria's voice grew urgent. "We built this company from nothing. We bled for it, and you want to just take it over?" Veronica's tone was cool. "I haven't decided yet." Ivy hesitated only a moment before extending her hand. "Deal," she said quietly. Veronica's grip was firm. "Then congratulations," she said with a sly smile. "You just declared war." Helena Blackwood was furious. Victor's expression turned grim as he sat in his study at Blackwood Manor, a testament to cold, calculated power. "Your actions will have consequences," Victor warned, his tone low and menacing. Ivy, standing tall, replied, "We are not afraid of you." As they left the Blackwood estate that night, Ivy and Aria knew they had made a dangerous enemy. Victor was not like Helena, he destroyed people quietly and efficiently, and now they were his next target. 2 days later, trouble arrived. Arya sat at the long dining table, scrolling through vivid Glow sales reports, when a single notification appeared. The bank account had been frozen pending a fraud investigation. Her stomach dropped. Ivy entered with a cup of coffee. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said. Arya turned the laptop toward her, and Ivy's expression hardened. "What the hell?" Beatrice entered just in time to hear, "What is wrong?" Ivy pushed the laptop toward her. Beatrice scanned the screen, her expression grim. "This isn't a mistake," she said quietly. "This is Victor." Within 24 hours, everything began to crumble. Vivid Glow's main distributor suddenly cut ties, investors backed out citing unforeseen risks, and major advertising campaigns were pulled. It was systematic, ruthless, and precise, and Ivy knew exactly what it meant. Victor was not just hurting them, he was erasing them. Arya's hand shook as she closed the laptop. "If we can't unfreeze our accounts, we can't pay our suppliers. If we can't pay our suppliers, we can't fulfill orders, and if we can't fulfill orders, we're finished." Ivy's jaw clenched. "Not like this," she declared firmly. Turning to Beatrice, she added, "There is always a way around power. There is always a weakness." Beatrice led them to her private study and pulled out a single black folder. "Inside this folder," she explained softly, "is something I have kept for 20 years, something even Victor Blackwood does not want the world to see." Ivy's eyes narrowed. "What is it?" Beatrice tapped the folder. "His greatest secret." Arya's breath hitched as Ivy opened the folder. On the very first page was proof that Victor had built his fortune on a foundation of lies. 2 nights later, Ivy and Arya found themselves in Victor's exclusive private club. The air was thick with cigar smoke and murmurs about offshore accounts. Victor sat at the center, unbothered until he saw them. His smirk returned briefly until Ivy slid the black folder across the table. "Read it," she said. Victor flipped through the damning pages, his amusement vanished and his jaw tightened. Arya watched, heart hammering, as Victor's eyes grew sharp. Finally, he closed the folder and slid it back. "What do you want?" he asked. Ivy smiled slowly. "Unfreeze our accounts, restore our business partnerships, and call off your quiet war against us." Victor leaned back, swirling his whiskey. "You think you can blackmail me into submission?" Ivy's smile was cold. "I think you have more to lose than we do." After a long pause, Victor's tone dropped dangerously. "I owe you nothing, and next time, I want to hold back." As they left the club, Arya exhaled shakily. "That was the most terrifying thing I've ever done," she murmured. Ivy, however, remained silent. Beatrice's words echoed in her mind. "Power isn't just about winning battles, it's about knowing which wars are worth fighting." Arya asked softly, "Did we win?" Ivy's eyes darkened. "We survived, but it's only a warning. Next time, he will come to destroy us." The next morning, Vivid Glow's bank accounts were restored, distributors returned, and investors apologized as if nothing had happened. Yet Ivy knew the truth. This was merely a warning. Victor had agreed to back off for now, but when he returned, he would ensure they never escaped his grasp a second time. At last, Blackwood Manor was quiet. Arya sat alone at the kitchen table, stirring her tea as Ivy scrolled through reports on her phone. Finally, Arya whispered, "What do we do now?" Ivy exhaled slowly. "We expand. We want to just survive, we will grow. Next time, we make sure he never gets back up." 2 days later, Ivy and Arya met with Veronica Kingsley once again in her elegant penthouse at Kingsley Tower. Veronica's icy gaze met theirs as she said, "You survived your father's little game." Ivy smirked. Did you bet against us? Veronica chuckled. I never bet against those who have nothing to lose. Arya added, we need to discuss expansion. Veronica raised an eyebrow. Ambitious, aren't we? Ivy folded her arms. We need stronger distribution and bigger markets. We're good, but we're not untouchable yet. Veronica leaned forward. Fine, but I have one condition. Ivy's chin lifted. Name it. Veronica smiled sharply. I want 20% of vivid glow. Arya's breath caught. That's too much. Ivy's jaw tensed. Veronica shrugged. You need power, I have it. If I risk my reputation to grow your empire, I want my share. Arya's voice wavered. It might be what we need. Ivy clenched her fists. Then let us negotiate. How about 12%? Veronica studied Ivy for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Deal? With that handshake, vivid glow became unstoppable, but Ivy couldn't shake the thought that they had just invited another enemy into their midst. Veronica wasn't merely an investor, she was a predator, and predators never made deals without an ulterior motive. When they returned to Blackwood Manor, Beatrice Sterling awaited them with arms crossed and an unreadable expression. You made a deal, she stated matter-of-factly. Ivy sighed. We had to. Beatrice continued, Veronica will take us to the next level. She has connections, influence, and now power over you. Ivy looked away. We know what we're doing, she murmured. Beatrice's voice was low. I hope so. Because if you don't, Veronica will eat you alive for the next month. With Veronica's backing, vivid glow exploded onto the national stage. Their products appeared in luxury stores across the country, sales tripled, and their name became synonymous with disruption. They were no longer outsiders, they were a force. But soon, small shifts occurred. A press release appeared under their name without their consent. New hires were made by Veronica without consulting them. A product launch was advanced despite Arya's protests that the formula wasn't ready. Ivy's jaw tightened. It was clear, Veronica was not just helping, they were taking control. 2 weeks later, Ivy stormed into Kingsley Tower, with Arya following close behind. Veronica sat in her office, effortlessly poised. To what do I owe the pleasure? She mused lightly. Ivy tossed a file onto her desk. You are making decisions without us. Veronica raised an eyebrow. I'm making decisions for you, that's what partners do. Arya interjected. No, that's what owners do. Veronica smiled. And what exactly did you think I was when you gave me 12%? Ivy's voice grew taut. We didn't sign over our company. Veronica leaned back, her tone even. No, but you did sign over influence, and influence, darling, is far more powerful than ownership. Ivy's breath slowed. Veronica tapped her nails on the desk. Tell me, Ivy, what are you so afraid of? Ivy's voice turned icy. Losing control. Veronica chuckled. Control is an illusion. You don't control power, you wield it. If you're smart, you'll stop fighting me and start learning from me. Arya frowned. What does that mean? Veronica's smile deepened. I have a proposal, a way to make you more powerful than you've ever imagined. Ivy narrowed her eyes. And what is the price? Veronica's gaze darkened. I want vivid glow. Arya's stomach dropped. No, Ivy, what do you want? Veronica's voice was smooth as silk. I want 51%. Arya gasped. That means control. Veronica tilted her head. Call it an insurance policy. I help you take down Helena, and in return, I take vivid glow to levels you can't even imagine. You will still have power, money, and your name, but I will own you. Arya stood abruptly. We're done here. Ivy did not move. Arya's voice was urgent. We built this company from nothing. We bled for it. And you want to take it all? Veronica's tone remained cool. I haven't decided yet. Ivy hesitated only a moment before extending her hand. Deal, she said softly. Veronica's grip was firm. Then congratulations, she said. You just declared war. Later that night, Helena Blackwood and Victor gathered in their penthouse. Victor's expression was grave as he read financial news. They have become a threat, he remarked. Helena's eyes darkened. If I can't destroy them directly, I know someone who can. Victor's tone was measured. Maybe it's time to let this go. Helena's voice, however, was low and dangerous. Not yet. If they win, I will make sure you see what real destruction is. Ivy and Arya, watching from afar, knew that they had struck a dangerous nerve. They had forced Helena and Victor into a war of influence, a war that would decide not only their own future, but the fate of an entire industry. In the days that followed, despite the chaos that Victor had unleashed, frozen accounts, lost partnerships, and systematic sabotage, Vivid Glow began to recover. Ivy and Arya refused to be cowed. When a cease and desist order forced them to abandon the Sterling name, they rebranded, stripping away the old identity and emerging as Vivid Glow, a declaration that Helena's attempt to erase them had only given them purpose. In the silent grand library of Blackwood Manor, as Arya's pen scratched across paper, and the weight of the order still hung in the air, the fire in Ivy's chest burned brighter than ever. They had lost the name Sterling Labs, but they had gained something far more powerful: clarity. Vivid Glow, Ivy murmured, rolling the name over on her tongue. We built this ourselves. We own it. Our initials are our future. No one can take that away from us now. Arya nodded. Then let us make sure it's worth fighting for. Beatrice watched them from the corner, a ghost of a smile on her lips. For the first time in a long time, she saw herself in them: the hunger, the defiance, the refusal to be erased. Perhaps, just perhaps, these girls would be the ones to shake the world. Rebranding was easy compared to the real challenge: getting noticed in an industry that thrived on exclusivity and impossible ideals. With traditional advertising too expensive, Ivy and Arya devised a plan based on viral marketing, a bold, controversial strategy. The next day, Ivy created a raw, unedited video. No models, no polished editing, just Ivy and Arya in their dim laboratory. They told us beauty was unattainable, Ivy declared. They said we would never belong. But we make our own rules. Holding up a small vial of their signature serum, Ivy continued, this is our challenge. Test our products for yourself. Within 24 hours, the video garnered 10,000 views and 1 million comments. Some critics ranted, this is pathetic. Beauty is for the beautiful. But for every cruel comment, 10 women cheered them on, women who had never felt seen by the industry, women tired of being told they were not enough. 3 weeks after the launch of Vivid Glow, the industry began to take notice. Major beauty brands spoke out. Articles appeared calling them gimmicky and reckless. Helena Blackwood was even quoted in Forbes, insisting that the beauty industry was built on prestige and quality, and that the twins' approach was reckless and unsustainable. But rather than killing their momentum, the criticism only fueled them. People were buying not just products, but an idea, a defiant stand against an industry built on insecurity. One evening, while Ivy and Arya worked late in the lab, the phone rang. Beatrice answered, her calm voice betraying a note of warning. After hanging up, she turned to the twins. That was a warning, she said. Ivy's stomach tightened, but she smiled, knowing exactly who had sent it. If Helena thought that would scare them, she had made the biggest mistake of her life. A brick had crashed through the lab window, landing inches from Aria's feet, with a note tied around it that read, "Know your place." Aria's breath hitched, and Beatrice's grip tightened. Ivy picked up the note and read it slowly. "This is from our mother," she murmured. "A warning, a declaration of war." Beatrice knelt and examined a shard of glass, then looked up at Ivy. "This was a calculated move," she said calmly. "She wants to make you afraid." Aria swallowed hard. "It worked," Ivy admitted, exhaling slowly. "But we must not give her the satisfaction of thinking she has won." Smoothing out the crinkles of the note, Ivy crossed out the words "No Mother" with a red marker. "You will learn our place," she whispered. "We cannot act like victims. If we start acting weak, she wins." 2 days later, Vivid Glow secured a feature on one of New York's most watched business talk shows. The interview, intended to celebrate their meteoric rise, became a stage for war. The interviewer asked, "You built an empire from the ground up, but some say your brand is just a marketing gimmick, a reckless disruption of true beauty." Ivy smiled. "Some people in the industry hate us not because our products don't work, but because we prove that beauty isn't just inherited, it is created." Her words hung in the air. The clip went viral within minutes. Headlines exploded across social media. "Beauty war. Vivid Glow calls out industry titans. The ugly truth behind Vivid Glow's rise." The battle lines had been drawn. Soon, Vivid Glow's suppliers began pulling out. Shipments were delayed, and banks reassessed their loans. Beatrice slammed the phone in frustration. "They're trying to cut off your lifeline," she said. Ivy clenched her teeth. "It's Helena," Beatrice nodded. "She is making calls and pulling favors, and she has more favors to pull than you do." Aria sat at the dining table, staring at numbers on her laptop. "If this continues, we won't be able to fulfill our next orders." Ivy exhaled sharply, pacing the room. "I expected retaliation, but not this fast. Mother is not playing defense, she is going for the kill." For the first time, Ivy truly felt the weight of real power. Despite all they had built, Helena still had more money, more influence, more weapons, and she was not afraid to use them. "Desperate," Aria suggested, "we need a partnership." Ivy was silent. "How about Veronica Kingsley?" Aria asked. Ivy's head snapped toward her. "Are you insane? She doesn't even know who we are." Aria pressed on, "But think Veronica hates Helena. Their companies have been rivals for years. It doesn't mean she'll help us, but we can offer her something she wants, a chance to take down Helena." Beatrice tapped her fingers on the table. "It's risky," she said, "because if you go to her, you admit weakness." Ivy met Aria's gaze. "Maybe weakness isn't what we show," she murmured. Finally, Ivy said, "Give me a meeting?" Aria nodded. "I already did." 2 hours later, Ivy and Aria stepped into Kingsley Tower. Veronica Kingsley sat behind a massive glass desk, watching them with cold amusement. "I was wondering when you'd come," she said, swirling wine in her glass. "I assume you realize just how small you still are." Ivy crossed her legs. "We're not here to beg," she said. "We're here to make a deal." Veronica raised a brow. "And why would I help you?" Ivy smiled. "Because if we fall, Helena wins, and you both know you despise her." Veronica's smirk softened for a long moment before she said, "Interesting." Aria held her breath. "Then, let us talk business." Veronica leaned forward. "I don't do charity. If I help you, I expect something in return." Ivy smirked. "We wouldn't be here if we weren't willing to pay the price." Veronica's eyes gleamed. "Good. Then let us talk terms." After a tense negotiation, they agreed on 12%. Deal, Veronica said, and with that handshake, Vivid Glow became unstoppable. Yet as Ivy left Kingsley Tower with Arya, a nagging thought persisted. They had just made another deal with the devil, and this time they were not sure who would ultimately win. Power, after all, always came at a price. Later that evening, as Ivy and Arya returned to Blackwood Manor, Beatrice Sterling met them with folded arms. "You made a deal," she stated simply. Ivy sighed. "We had to." Beatrice tilted her head. "Veronica will take you to the next level with her influence and connections, but remember, power shared is power contested. You must never let her control you completely." Ivy looked away, troubled by the thought that they had invited yet another enemy into their midst. "We know what we're doing," she murmured. Beatrice's tone softened slightly. "I hope so, because if you don't, Veronica will eat you alive for the next month." In the ensuing weeks, with Veronica's backing, Vivid Glow grew rapidly. Their products graced luxury stores nationwide, sales tripled, and their name became synonymous with disruption. Yet as growth surged, subtle shifts occurred. An unauthorized press release, strategic hires made by Veronica without consultation, and a product launch moved up despite Arya's protests. Ivy's jaw tightened as she realized Veronica was not simply helping them, she was gradually taking control. 2 weeks later, Ivy stormed into Kingsley Tower with Arya in tow. Confronting Veronica in her office, Ivy demanded, "You are making decisions without us." Veronica replied calmly, "I'm making decisions for you. That is what partners do." Arya countered, "No, that is what owners do." Veronica's eyes gleamed as she asked, "What did you think I was when you gave me 12%? Ivy's voice grew icy. "We did not sign over our company." Veronica leaned back. "No, but you signed over influence, and influence is far more powerful than ownership." After a tense silence, Veronica added, "Tell me, Ivy, what are you so afraid of?" Ivy's answer was chilling. "Losing control." Veronica chuckled softly. "Control is an illusion. You do not control power, you wield it. If you are smart, you will stop fighting me and start learning from me." Arya frowned. "What does that mean?" Veronica's smile deepened. "I have a proposal that will make you more powerful than you have ever imagined." Ivy's eyes narrowed. "And what is the price?" Veronica's tone turned dark. "I want Vivid Glow." Arya's stomach dropped. "No," Ivy insisted. "What do you want?" Veronica's voice was smooth and confident. "I want 51%. Arya gasped. "That means control." Veronica tilted her head. "Call it an insurance policy. I help you take down Helena, and in return, I take Vivid Glow to heights you can't imagine. You will still have power, money, and your name, but I will own you." Arya abruptly stood. "We're done here." Ivy and Arya exchanged a look of uncertainty, yet Ivy's voice was resolute. "We built this company from nothing, and we will not hand it over without a fight." Veronica's smile was both playful and ominous as she added, "Then you just declared war." That night, Helena Blackwood and Victor gathered in their penthouse, their expressions grim. Victor stated, "Your actions have consequences." Helena's eyes burned with fury as she replied, "If I cannot destroy them directly, then I will let someone else do it." Victor's tone was measured. "Perhaps it is time to let this go." But Helena's voice was low and menacing. "Not yet. If they win, you will witness true destruction." Ivy and Arya, far away in the silence of Blackwood Manor, realized they had struck a dangerous nerve. They had forced Helena and Victor into a war of influence, a war that would determine not only their own future, but the fate of the entire beauty industry. In the following days, despite the chaos unleashed by Victor frozen bank accounts, lost suppliers, and dismantled partnerships. Vivid glow began to recover. Ivy and Arya refused to be defeated. At last, the frozen accounts were unfrozen, orders resumed, and investors apologized as if nothing had happened. Yet Ivy knew this was only a temporary reprieve, a warning that Victor would return with full force. As silence settled over Blackwood Manor, Arya sat at the kitchen table stirring her tea, while Ivy scrolled through reports on her phone. "So what do we do now?" Arya asked softly. Ivy exhaled slowly. "We expand. We want he just survive, we will grow. Next time, we make sure he never gets back up." 2 days later, Ivy and Arya met with Veronica Kingsley one final time in her sleek penthouse at Kingsley Tower. Veronica's cool blue eyes regarded them. "You survived your father's little game," she said, "but now you must consider expansion." Ivy folded her arms. "We need stronger distribution and bigger markets," she declared. Veronica leaned forward. "I have one condition." Ivy's eyes narrowed. "Name it." Veronica smiled knowingly. "I want 20% of vivid glow." Arya's breath caught. "That's too much." Ivy's jaw tensed. Veronica shrugged. "You need power, I have it. If I risk my reputation to grow your empire, I expect my share." Arya interjected softly. "It might be what we need." Ivy clenched her fists. "Then let us negotiate 12%. Veronica studied Ivy, then nodded slowly. "Deal." With that handshake, vivid glow was set to become unstoppable. Yet as Ivy and Arya left Kingsley Tower, Ivy couldn't shake the feeling that they had just made another deal with the devil, and that this time, the price might be more than they could bear. When they returned to Blackwood Manor, Beatrice Sterling was waiting, arms crossed and expression unreadable. "You made a deal," she said simply. Ivy exhaled. "We had to." Beatrice tilted her head. "Veronica's influence now puts you on a new path. Remember, power always comes at a price." Ivy sighed. "We know what we're doing." Beatrice's eyes softened just a bit. "I hope so, because if you don't, Veronica will eventually take over completely." In the following weeks, with Veronica's backing, Vivid Glow's products hit luxury stores across the country. Sales tripled, and their name became synonymous with disruption in the beauty industry. They were no longer outsiders, they were a formidable force. Yet beneath the surface, tension simmered. Veronica began issuing press releases under Vivid Glow's name without approval, making strategic hires without consulting Ivy and Arya, and even moving up product launches despite Arya's protests. Ivy's jaw tightened as she realized Veronica wasn't just helping them grow, she was gradually seizing control. 2 weeks later, Ivy stormed into Kingsley Tower, Arya trailing behind her, and confronted Veronica once again. "You are making decisions without us," Ivy shouted. Veronica raised an eyebrow and replied coolly, "I'm making decisions for you. That's what partners do." Arya interjected, "No, that's what owners do." Veronica smiled sharply. "And what did you think I was when you gave me 12%? Ivy's voice turned icy. "We did not sign over our company." Veronica leaned back and said, "No, but you did sign over influence, and influence is far more powerful than ownership." After a long silence, Veronica tapped her nails on the desk. "Tell me, Ivy, what are you so afraid of?" Ivy's voice was chilling, losing control. Veronica chuckled softly. "Control is an illusion. You do not control power, you wield it. If you're smart, you'll stop fighting me and start learning from me." Arya frowned. "What does that mean?" Veronica's smile deepened. "I have a proposal that will make you more powerful than you've ever imagined." Ivy narrowed her eyes. "And what is the price?" Veronica's tone turned dark. "I want Vivid Glow." Arya's stomach dropped. No, Ivy, what do you want? Veronica's voice was smooth. I want 51%. Arya gasped. That means control. Veronica tilted her head. Call it an insurance policy. I help you take down Helena, and in return, I take Vivid Glow to unimaginable heights. You will still have power, money, and your name, but I will own you. Arya stood abruptly. We're done here. Ivy and Arya exchanged looks of uncertainty, but Ivy's tone was resolute. We built this company from nothing, and we will not hand it over without a fight. Veronica's smile was playful yet ominous. Then you've just declared war. That night, as Ivy and Arya returned to Blackwood Manor, they knew the next move was critical. Ivy sat at the head of the long mahogany dining table, a notebook open before her, while Arya watched intently. We are not going to let Helena win, Ivy said quietly. I have a plan not to take her down directly, but to make her destroy herself. Arya's eyes widened. How do we do that? Ivy tapped the table thoughtfully. For years, Helena has done everything to erase us, but now we have power and influence. Deep down, she wants us back not as daughters, but as assets. We will let her think that we are ready to make a deal with her, and then we will trap her. Beatrice, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. What happens if she takes the bait? Ivy smiled. Then the whole world will see her true face. The plan was simple, a subtle rumor planted in the right circles, just loud enough for Helena to hear, causing investors to doubt her leadership. 2 days later, Helena Blackwood made her move, inviting the three of them to an exclusive dinner at the Blackwood estate. In the grand dining room, lit by flickering candles and polished mahogany, Helena greeted them with a smile that concealed her calculating nature. My daughters, she murmured, I have long waited for this moment. Ivy and Arya exchanged glances. Helena raised her glass. Shall we toast to family? Ivy forced a smile and replied, to new beginnings. 3 glasses clinked, and the trap was set. Helena leaned back, studying them. I must say, I wasn't expecting you to stand on your own, she said softly. Ivy arched an eyebrow. Perhaps you were expecting less. Arya's hands trembled slightly, but Ivy remained calm. We have made enemies, Helena murmured, and the industry isn't built for people like us. She paused, tapping her wine glass. Perhaps we need to reconsider our approach. Her eyes gleamed with a hint of triumph as she continued, I knew you were intelligent, you just needed time to see the truth. Ivy asked quietly, and what truth is that? Helena smiled, that you can have everything: power, influence, security. All you have to do is come back to the Blackwood name. Ivy's pulse remained steady. And what would that look like? Helena's smile widened. Simple. Merge Vivid Glow with Blackwood Enterprises. You get the empire you've always wanted, and I get my daughters back. Ivy's stomach twisted with conflicting emotions. I don't know, Mother, she murmured. Helena leaned in. If our investors or partners learn of this, the backlash could be huge. Ivy's eyes hardened. So it must remain off the record. Helena nodded approvingly. Exactly. Arya glanced at Ivy, and Ivy gave the slightest nod. Then Arya activated a live recording feed with a press of a button on her bracelet. An anonymous link was shared with every major news outlet. Suddenly, Helena boasted openly about orchestrating attacks on Vivid Glow, admitting she had bribed suppliers and manipulated investors. The industry, she declared loudly, belongs not to the best, but to the most ruthless. The world listened as every word was broadcast. The fallout was immediate. Breaking news revealed Helena Blackwood's corruption, and within hours, corporate sponsors fled, lawsuits were filed, stock prices plummeted, and Helena became public enemy number one. Her once untouchable empire crumbled overnight. Ivy and Arya watched the news in the grand library of Blackwood Manor, their expressions resolute. "It's over," Arya whispered. Ivy replied firmly, "Not yet, we have one more move." Later that night, Helena's penthouse was silent. The staff had vanished, and the once imposing home felt empty. When the doorbell rang, Helena, trembling slightly, opened the door to find Ivy and Arya dressed in black. No words were exchanged. Finally, Helena murmured, "You think this makes you powerful? You think taking me down means you've won?" Ivy's face remained impassive. "We are no longer afraid of you," she said evenly. Helena's jaw tightened as she stared at her drink. "I spent my whole life building something that mattered, something greater than myself, and now it's all gone." Arya whispered, "You did that to yourself." For a moment, Helena's perfect mask cracked, revealing regret not for abandoning them or hurting them, but for losing what she truly cared about: winning, power, control. Without another word, Ivy stood. "Goodbye, Mother." Helena did not respond, just sat staring into her empty glass. When Ivy and Arya walked out that door, they knew they would never see her again. Helena Blackwood was gone. 1 week later, Vivid Glow held a press conference. Ivy stood before hundreds of reporters, with Arya at her side, as cameras flashed. For years, Ivy declared in a steady voice, the beauty industry belonged to people like Helena Blackwood. That ends today, now it belongs to us. The crowd erupted. With that, the Blackwood name was finally erased, and the twins had won. As the sun set over New York City, casting a golden glow over Blackwood Manor, the air inside felt lighter than it had in 20 years. Ivy and Arya were free from fear, free from constant battles, free from the shadow of the Blackwood name. In the Manor's balcony, Arya gazed over the skyline, and Ivy handed her a glass of champagne. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Arya sighed, "So what now?" Ivy smirked. "Now, we build something bigger." Arya rolled her eyes. "Of course," she said softly. Ivy took a sip of champagne and added, "This isn't just about revenge anymore." She gestured toward the city. Helena's empire is gone, but the industry, and the way people see themselves, remains broken. Arya studied her sister. "You really think we can change that?" Ivy's lips curled into a confident smile. "I already believe we have." 2 months later, Vivid Glow officially launched its most ambitious project yet, a foundation for women in business, a program that funded female entrepreneurs and supported real, unfiltered beauty. No more impossible standards, no more exclusivity, only power. Ivy and Arya were no longer just running a brand, they were rewriting the rules, and the world was finally listening. One final letter arrived at the manor, no return address, no signature, just a single handwritten note. "I was wrong about you. You won." Ivy stared at it for a long time before slowly folding it and setting it aside. She did not need an apology or closure, because deep down, she had won a long time ago. Now, she was ready to move forward. The world had once called them plain, unwanted, and forgotten, but they had rewritten their story. They had transformed pain, rejection, and scars into power, because beauty was never the goal, strength was. And in the end, that had always been their greatest weapon. The end.